Welcome to the first ever episode of Unstoppable. I'm your host, Rob Menino, COO of the Colca Group, and we have a very special guest here today, Jody Fisher, VP of Public Relations at Austin Williams. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely, man. Thank you for being my first guest. So, first of all, I have to give a shout out to Austin Williams, one of my favorite marketing and PR companies on the island.
Thank you.
I'm kind of big into the whole marketing and branding thing, and you guys do it right. You do it well. Everything from top to bottom, including the office. So you guys are special. I always have a special place in my heart for Austin Williams.
Thank you very much, and we love working with you guys.
Thank you.
Terrific clients to have.
We appreciate it. So today I wanted to bring you in for a very specific reason. I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between earned media versus paid media. I know you're kind of an expert on the earned media part. You've been doing it for a very long time, and I think that not a lot of small companies really understand the difference. Mm-hmm. I think that they have a misconception that the earned media portion of this is really for bigger companies. Like they might not have a story that's worthwhile. And I know that you probably have a disagreement with that. And you could teach us a little bit about how we might be able to get into that. So first off, let's just talk about the difference between what really is earned media. What is it? How do we get it? And what is the difference between that and paid media?
Sure. We talk about earned media, meaning things you earn it, right? You roll up your sleeves and you go out there and you pitch a story to a reporter. So earned media is anything you might think of as news, whether it's in the newspaper, radio, TV, something you think of as news, it's earned media. You go out and earn it. As opposed to paid media, which is an advertisement, right? You create an ad, you call up the newspaper, the radio, the TV station, and you place that ad. So we're talking about stories that we pitch to reporters, that we pitch to editors, that are written about people, about companies, about things that are going on in the community.
Awesome. And let's talk a little bit about smaller companies, right? I'm a business owner, and I might not necessarily even realize that I have a story that is really worth or worthy of getting published in any type of publication. Does everyone have a story to tell? What does that look like?
Everybody has their story to tell,
okay.
Right? The key to getting earned media, and earned media is open to everybody, big, small, and in between. The key to getting successful in pitching and placing earned media stories is figuring out what's important to you and then why it's important to the outlet you're trying to get into. So for example, here on Long Island, Newsday. You're trying to pitch a story to Newsday. Newsday has got a particular audience, right? And the people who are watching this are probably part of that audience. Mm-hmm. You've got to figure out why this is important to Newsday's audience in order to be successful in pitching a story to a Newsday reporter, whether that's the front of the paper, the back of the paper, or the middle. Figuring out why your story is important to other people is the key to success.
Let's say I have a story, right? And something that I feel is worthy. I mean, there's always, I could call you, right? But let's say I don't have.
You can always call me.
Well, I appreciate that, and we always do, right? We always do. But let's say I don't have it in the budget, right? I'm a smaller company, and we just can't afford a PR firm just yet, right? Mm-hmm. How do you even get started? Like, what is the first thing you would do to pitch this story to some sort of publication?
Sure. Well, the nice thing about earned media too, and this is not to knock on paid media, earned media is far more nimble and far more cost effective mm-hmm. than paid media. And that's simply because in paid media, you have to create the ad, then you have to buy the space, right? In earned media, we're not buying the space. We're asking someone to write this story, to devote their column inches or their airtime to the story that we're pitching. So all the work and all the pay really just has to go into creating the content that we're pitching out. In terms of if you're a smaller operation and you still don't have the budget to put into a PR campaign, you write copy for your website, mm-hmm. presumably. You write copy for maybe an email newsletter that goes out to your subscribers or to your client base or your customer base. So figure out what you're saying in those vehicles and in those publications and try to pitch that to a reporter at a particular outlet. The best way to figure that out is to just pick up the newspaper. I tell people, if you want to be in the New York Times, you got to read the New York Times. If you want to be on CNN, you got to watch CNN a little while, right? And figure out who does what, who reports on what, and then hunt and peck and figure out, their email address, their phone number. It's just like pursuing a customer or a client, right?
Yep.
You figure out how to find them, go find them.
So this is where I kind of always get screwed up a little, right? So I market on Facebook. I mark it on Google AdWords. I put some sort of budget towards something, especially digital, right? And print in a sense. There's ways to do it. You could track your return on investment, right? It's so much simpler to get those analytics, track the return, figure out what calls are coming in from certain campaigns. Earned media is a little bit different, right? So like you really can't track how that phone call is coming in or where that call came from or what came out of that out of that article that was written about you. So it becomes a little bit tougher. How much time, effort, energy do you spend on it? How do you tackle that question when a client comes to you and says, how do I know my return on investment from hiring Austin Williams to do my public relations for me? How do I track that investment and know that I'm actually getting a good return on it?
It's a great question, and it's a really important question. PR historically has been more challenging to track, for sure, than other forms of media. That said, when you have a story that pops in your local newspaper or on TV or whatever, your phone does ring, right? You can look on your website and maybe see a jump in your analytics and see a little spike in what's going on online. You might see more traction on your social media that day, whatever. To me, the point of PR is to help drive your business and your awareness. PR is all about awareness. Do people know who I am, what I do, the service I provide, the product I sell, right? It's as much about brand building as an ad might be. PR too is about writing your history, right? When you go online and you Google somebody, you're trying to do research about somebody, all that stuff that comes up because someone wrote about it. Someone put it there. So I would say someone who's considering a PR campaign, think about what you want people to know about you today and 5 years from now. So when 5 years from now they go online and they search for you, what are they going to find? That's the result of a good PR campaign.
That makes a lot of sense. I actually never even thought about it in that sense. And a lot of times when we're doing whatever we're doing, marketing, building our new website, we go back and we search the history of Kolka. And Jack was very good. There was a lot of media coverage on him. There was a lot of stories around him.
I was one of those guys. I covered Jack when I was a reporter.
It makes sense. And we're actually able to go back and we're able to see a lot of that stuff. And I never really thought about it in the terms of writing history. You start to understand what is worthy of media at that point, right? When you think about it as writing the history of your company. In 10 years from now, what do you want people to remember about you? And then you start thinking, okay, it's much more valuable to me to spend the time, energy, and effort in doing it when you think about it in those terms. And it's not really so much the today, it's what happens in 5 years, 10 years from now. Another thing that you said that I thought was very interesting is you might be able to see a spike in your website, right? So just recently you did a campaign for us to help us launch Kolka Interactive. And we were published in a few different publications. And I noticed that when those publications put out their stories, whether it be online or in print, right? This happened to be online. They put out their stories. I could noticeably see a difference that day in my traffic to the Kolka Interactive website. And it's just one or two different publications. It wasn't anything that was crazy or something that was moving mountains, but these one or two publications drive hundreds of people to the website just because they're curious as to what Kolka Interactive is, and that story left them wanting more. So even though it might not be a direct analytic, you could definitely see the difference when that was published. So it's interesting.
And in addition to your website traffic spiking or your phone perhaps ringing, if we weren't in the age of COVID, we might be going to cocktail parties, we might be going to networking events, and I'll guarantee you that if you get a story in that publication, the next time you walk into a crowded room, people are going to say, hey, I saw you in that thing. Hey, I read about that thing that you're doing. That's really cool. How can I get involved in that? That's what PR does really, really well, is it spreads the word about who you are, about what you're doing. It builds your reputation, right? And it helps you become the thing you aspire to be. It does it through what we call third-party endorsement, right? You can take out an ad and say how great you are, and that's important. It's important to do. It's part of your brand building. But when someone else writes a story about you and says how great you are, that feels really different from the person who's consuming it, reading it, seeing it on TV, hearing it on the radio, or even reading it online. And you go back 20 years ago in PR, we used to think a web hit was like, oh, and it's a web hit, but it's, is it in print? Now, the web hit is probably even more important than the print hit because more and more people are seeing it and more people are sharing it. And when you talk about traffic to a website, a digital hit super important to what you're doing.
Yeah. You know, and it's, again, I could talk personally on this just this week, right? We talk about our quote unquote launch for Culca Interactive, and you had helped us get strategically placed in some places. And then just Culca Interactive in general, like just being out there, people talking about it. I went to a party over the weekend, right? Small little get together. It wasn't a business event. It was just it was a third birthday party, right? At a friend's house. We were hanging out outside in the pool, and people that I've never had business conversations with ever came up to me and said, "Hey, I saw you on social media this week," or "I saw that Culca Interactive thing. I saw what you guys are doing. I noticed it in this publication or that publication." And they came up to me and they sparked a conversation of someone I've never had the conversation with before. I don't even think they really knew what we did prior. I don't think they knew what I did for a living. But I had a conversation with 3, 4, 5 people out of the 15 people that were there come up to me and ask us questions. And I think that's really where the power comes in. It's just kind of people know what you're doing. They see it out there. And people that you wouldn't necessarily be able to or have a conversation with to be able to tell them, hey, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, see it in these places. And that's really where the power of these media publications come in.
Absolutely. And when you consider the fact that PR can do that in a very nimble way, as frequently as you can imagine. And if you get really good at your craft, you start to sprinkle those stories around in different places. So you have this natural cadence of earned media that is constantly churning out there. You know, where it's this publication and then it's that TV station and it's this radio interview and it just goes around and around and around. You start to really build the name of your company into the vernacular. You know, and that's what we're trying to do for Culca Interactive, is to make you a Google, right? To make you a Xerox, to make you that sort of that verb in a way, and to inject it into people's conversations when they think of whether it's real estate and construction, whether it's development, or whether it's now digital. You know, to think of Culca. Yeah. That's the whole idea.
Cool, really cool. And I guess also, I mean, forget about print, forget about video, there's a whole digital aspect now to public relations, and it could be podcasts, it could be blogs, there's so many ways to get your name out there. I'd imagine that kind of when you're concentrating on something, it runs the gamut and you kind of can touch on all those things.
Absolutely. And the overused word is content, but it's true, right? You're creating content, and in a world where, and it pains me to say, newsrooms are shrinking, reporter jobs are fewer and fewer, and you've got fewer people doing more work. Mm-hmm. They are overtaxed. So the best thing that I can do as a PR person is to deliver what I call actionable information, right? Give someone the information and the assets, photo, video, whatever that is, that they need to instantly, in 5 seconds, look at my pitch and go, I can do that. Or if they personally can't do it, go, I can't do that, but Joe sitting next to me can. Right? Oh, this is for this desk, and push it over to there. If we're in an age now where if reporters have to think of it, delete, it's gone, right? So you have to bring that actionable information, that actionable posture to everything that you do with reporters to make it easy for them, help them tell your story.
Yeah, the easier the easier you make it for them to publish your article or publish your story, the easier it becomes to get published, right? If they could just kind of flip that thing around and take what you put and throw it into their format, and it just works, and it's something that they know people will be interested in. They know that it'll be valuable to their readers, and they don't have to do much work to do it. I mean, you're making their job pretty easy, and it's probably going to be the one that's at the top of the list.
Exactly right. And going back to what we talked about at the top with big company versus small company, you know, and everybody has an opportunity to tell their story. You have to have the copy, you have to have the photo, you have to have the video. You go back 25 years, we used to refer to things as radio stories and TV stories because one was visual and one wasn't. Now everything is visual.
Yep.
Everything's got a photo with it. Everything's got a video with it. Everything needs all those assets delivered to the reporter, first shot. We're in an age now where even TV stations will take well-shot video. I've delivered video to TV stations that I shot on my iPhone. Now that's because the iPhone's got a great lens now. Everybody's got a computer, a TV studio in their pocket. But if you shoot that stuff well, people will use it, partially because they need to, because there are fewer people doing more jobs. And so the more you can become an asset to those desks, those editors, those reporters, the more successful you're going to be in telling your story.
And getting back to the 10, 5, 10, 15 years from now, right? We go back and we look at stories, and if those stories don't have the good image with them, it's tough to use. If they don't have, the good quotes, the good information, a video that goes with it, it kind of dies. If it's just like a short little blurb and has like a little bit of information in there, okay, great, it did its job. But the real impactful ones, the ones that we use over and over and will continue to have that quote unquote ROI for years to come, are the ones that have those valuable assets. I walk around my phone, I take pictures of everything. You just never know when you're going to use it. If I walk on that job site, I'm taking pictures of it. If we're in here, we're taking pictures of it. We want the behind the scenes. We want pictures of me and you. We just want those pictures because we never know when we're going to be able to use those things or how valuable they're going to be in the future or what story we're going to put those together with. And the more quote unquote content you have, including the copy, the pictures, the video, the more that you'll be able to use it. And that's kind of, that's just the name of the game, right? That's what this is. That's what Colfa Interactive is, right? We're literally just creating as much content and information as we possibly can to put it out there. And that's going to be there to live forever. That's going to be there in 2 years from now, 5 years from now, from 10 years from now, all this information, all these videos, all those pictures, it's just going to be you could reuse it over and over, and it's just going to continue to give us a good return. So definitely. I totally see the taking your phone out and taking pictures as much as you can. Well, listen, Jody, I completely appreciate it. I think we had a very valuable conversation here. I think a lot of people can learn a little bit about the power of public relations. I think that you should tell everybody how to get in touch with you because I endorse Jody wholeheartedly. He has done so many things for so many great people. And if there's anybody that I had to call for anything, I wouldn't hesitate. He is the guy to call. So how does somebody get in touch with you if they need to?
Sure. It's really easy. AustinWilliams.com is our website.
Okay.
You can email me directly at jodyf, JODYF, @AustinWilliams.com. You can find us on all the social platforms.
We appreciate it. They're not a hard company to find. These guys are everywhere, and we love them. So thank you very much.
Awesome.